There's a scene in Hyouka where Oreki looks out from the window. Nothing happens, nobody speaks, and somehow it's one of the most affecting moments in the entire show. That's the thing about Hyouka that's difficult to explain to someone who hasn't seen it. It's a show where almost nothing happens, at least not in the way we usually expect anime to deliver things. No battles, no high stakes, no dramatic declarations. Just a group of students, a literature club, and a series of mysteries so small they barely qualify as mysteries at all. And yet it stays with you, long after you've finished it, after you've moved on to other things. It stays. Today I want to try and understand why. Hey, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. Today we're talking about Hyouka, and if you've already seen my first video on the show, then you know I looked at what it does and where it leaves you wanting. This video is something different. This is me sitting with Hyouka properly on its own terms, what it's actually doing beneath the surface. Because I think Hyouka has a philosophy, a quiet one, an understated one, but a genuine one, and is built entirely around a single idea, that small moments carry more weight than we ever stop to notice. That's what we're exploring today. And if you've never seen Hyouka before, then I'll give you as we go. Also, just a quick note that some of the references in this video are drawn from the original light novels alongside the anime. Nothing that spoils the experience, but I guess it's worth knowing. So, Hyouka, for anyone coming in fresh, it follows Oreki Hotaro, a high school student who lives by a single guiding principle: don't expend energy you don't have to. He joins the classic literature club purely because his sister asks him to, expecting nothing from it. What he finds instead are three people who pull him gradually and almost against his will into caring about things. There's Oreki and Chitanda, relentlessly, almost overwhelmingly curious, who has a habit of pulling Oreki into mysteries he'd rather leave unsolved. There's Satoshi, Oreki's closest friend, enthusiastic and self-aware in equal measure. And there's Mayuka, sharp and principled, who doesn't let anyone get away with much. Together they solve mysteries, but here's the thing, and this is important for understanding everything else: the mysteries are never really the point. The mystery of why a door was locked, why an uncle disappeared from a film, what happened at a school's festival 45 years ago, these are small things, quiet things, the kind of thing that most people would shrug off and forget about. Hyouka doesn't shrug them off, it treats them like they matter. And in doing so, it asks us a question it never quite puts into words. What if everything that seems small isn't? To understand what Hyouka is saying, you have to start with Oreki, because he is, in a very real sense, the show's philosophical anchor. His energy conservation principle sounds like laziness on the surface, and sometimes it is. But the more you sit with it, the more you realize it's something deeper than that. Oreki has made a deliberate choice to move through life touching as little of it as possible. Not because he's cruel or indifferent, but because caring costs something. Engaging costs something. And somewhere along the way, he decided that that cost wasn't worth it. He's built his life around the idea that if you don't look too closely at things, you won't find anything that disturbs you. You won't find anything that pulls you in. You won't find anything that makes you feel the weight of what you might be missing. The tragedy, and Hyouka is too gentle to call it a tragedy outright, but it is one, is that this philosophy requires him to actively unsee the world around him, look at something meaningful and choose not to find the meaning in it. And then Chitanda asks him to look. Oreki and Chitanda is often read as the show's emotional engine, the force that drives the plot forward by being curious about things Oreki would rather ignore. And that's true, but I think she's also something more than a plot device, and the show knows it. Chitanda's curiosity isn't represented as a quirk or a character trait in the conventional sense. It's closer to a worldview. She moves through life genuinely believing that everything she encounters is worth understanding. A strange phrase our uncle said once, an odd smell in a room, a moment that doesn't quite add up. Where Oreki has trained himself not to look, Chitanda cannot stop looking. She's in a sense his philosophical opposite, and the show places them together deliberately because their dynamic isn't really about romance or mystery solving or even friendship in the usual sense. It's about two completely different relationships with the world, placed in close proximity, and watches what happens next. What happens is this: Chitanda's curiosity is contagious, not in a dramatic way, not in a way Oreki would ever admit, but slowly, quietly, across the course of the show, he starts to look at things differently. He starts noticing weight in places he could previously have walked past without a second thought. That shift is so gradual, you almost miss it, and it's one of the most honestly observed things I've seen in anime, because that's how people actually change, not in moments, in accumulation. Here's where I want to spend some real time, because this is the heart of it. Hyouka is a Kanya production, And if you know anything about Kyoto's animation work, you know they have an almost unparalleled ability to make ordinary things look extraordinary. The way light falls through a window, the way hand moves when someone is thinking, the texture of an afternoon that has no particular significance. Hyouka isn't just using that visual language for aesthetics, making an argument with it. The argument is this: the moments we dismiss as ordinary are not actually ordinary. They are carrying things, memory, feeling, meaning. Things that haven't announced themselves yet, that are waiting to be noticed by someone willing to stop and look. Every mystery in Hyouka is a version of this same idea. Someone dismissed something as unimportant, looked away, decided it wasn't worth the attention. And inside that dismissed moment was something real. Grief, love, regret, pride that had been sitting quietly waiting. The uncle who disappeared from a school film, 45 years of nobody asking the right question, and when Oreki finally does ask it, what he finds isn't a scandal or a revelation in the dramatic sense. He finds a person, a young man who made a choice that cost him something, and who was never properly acknowledged for it. That's what Hyouka does over and over. In different registers, it finds a person inside that overlooked the moment. It insists that ordinary things were never as ordinary as we told ourselves they were. If you want to see Hyouka operating at its fullest, the Kanya festival arc is where to look. On the surface, it's a school cultural festival. The classic literature club trying to sell off too many copies of their anthology. One mystery leading to another in a chain of small, interconnected puzzles. Taken individually, none of it is dramatic. A manga artist feeling undermined, a missing item from a stall, a film that doesn't quite add up. But taken together, across those episodes, something accumulates. The festival becomes a kind of world in miniature, full of people doing small things that matter deeply to them, and brushing up against other people doing the same. Nobody's stakes are globally significant. Everybody's stakes are completely real. There's a moment late in the arc where Oreki solves something. I won't say what, and the solution is quiet, almost anticlimactic in the way it lands. And then you sit with it for a moment and you realize it isn't anticlimactic at all. It's devastating in the most understated way possible. That's the show at its most. Finding devastation in a small room. Finding significance in a moment that asks nothing of you. One of the things I find most honest about Hyouka is that it doesn't give Oreki a clean resolution. He changes. We've talked about that. He starts to notice things he would previously have chosen not to see. He starts to care in the careful, reluctant way that suits him. The show never pretends that caring comes without cost, or that Oreki's fundamental nature has been overwritten by what he's experienced. There's a moment near the end where he articulates something about himself, about the kind of person he is and the kind of person he isn't. And it's one of the most quietly heartbreaking lines in the show, precisely because it's delivered without any drama at all. He says it in the way you'd state a fact about the weather, and I think that's intentional. Hyouka isn't interested in the version of the story where the reserved, closed-off protagonist opens up completely and becomes someone new. It's interested in the more truthful version where someone encounters beauty and meaning and lets it touch them just enough while remaining fundamentally who they are. That restraint is one of the greatest acts of respect towards its characters. It doesn't ask them to become different people. It just asks them to look a little more carefully at the world they're already in. I want to step outside the show for a moment because I think what Hyouka is doing is worth taking seriously beyond its runtime. We live in a moment that is not particularly kind to small things. Attention moves fast. Significance is measured loudly. The things that don't announce themselves, the quiet afternoon, the conversation that mattered but didn't feel like it at the time, the moment of light on a wall, these things get lost because we've built an environment that makes it not easy to notice them. Hyouka is a gentle, persistent argument against that. It's a show that sits with you and says, slow down, look at this. Not because it's spectacular, but because it's real, and real thing deserves attention. Oreki would resist that framing. He'd say, you're expanding energy you don't need to. But by the end of the show, I'm not sure he entirely believes that anymore, and I'm not sure we should either. The title of this video, You Were Never Supposed to Find Anything, is Oreki's philosophy at the start of the show. Don't look, don't engage, don't find things that will ask something of you. What Hyouka spends 22 episodes doing quietly and without fanfare is dismantling that idea, not by proving him wrong in any dramatic sense, just by showing him and us what happens when you look anyway. You find people. You find meaning tucked inside moments that had no reason to announce themselves. You find that the weight was always there in things that you walked past 100 times without stopping. That's what the show does, and that's why for me it stays. Let's appreciate the small moments in a bigger picture. So this is the second video in what I'm building into a longer conversation about Hyouka, because I don't think one video or even two is enough for a show this layered. But there's more to come, and if that's something you want to be here for, you know what to do. Until next time.